All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our ongoing military leadership series. And we have a wonderful guest for you this evening. Before we get started, a couple little housekeeping rules. If you have a question, go ahead and let us know. That's fine. However, try to be courteous and find a lull in the conversation and then ask them. Please try not to interrupt the speaker. Secondly, if you're not talking, go ahead and mute your mics. And then that's pretty much all I have. Dan, I'm gonna turn it over to you for introductions, and let's get rocking and rolling.
All right, thanks, Doc. Welcome, everyone. Very excited to have you guys as part of the leadership series here. Tonight's a very special guest, a good friend of mine that I just ran into for the first time in many years, Colonel Mike Meumann. And we go way back to the mid 90s when we were kind of running around Buffalo together in the Canisius area as Mike was a part of the Canisius ROTC. Since then, he's done a lot of great things and carved out quite an awesome career for himself as a Army Ranger, airborne. He's been a commander at different levels. He's had quite a few deployments, Afghanistan, Korea. He'll tell you a lot more about where he's been. We have a mixture of active duty here, ROTC cadets, student American Warrior family, and students. And we're even going to have a couple people popping in a little bit later that have graduated from the program. So I want you all to welcome Colonel Meumann here onto the leadership class. Doc, thank you as always for locking it down. And let's turn it over to the man himself.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are all doing well and happy holidays. I'm real honored, and it is a privilege to be able to have this opportunity to speak with all of you about a great subject about leadership and about service in the military. Regardless of where you are in your walks of life, whether you're currently active duty, whether you're ROTC, thinking about joining the military or have previously served, it is a great profession to be a part of and to consider and to think about. And I've got some slides that I'd like to kind of go through, just kind of give you a little bit of my leadership philosophy over the past 26 years I've been in the military. Been very fortunate, very blessed to serve with a lot of American heroes in all the different units and all the different places. Been very fortunate, and those are the things that you're going to remember regardless of where you are. But I got a couple slides, but we don't have to be tied to the slides. They're just a way to kind of help the dialogue and get them going. But we don't have to kind of necessarily just stick to into those things. I'm more curious to kind of hear your perspectives and hear what you're interested in. Are your questions? What are your concerns? And what kind of, keeps you thinking about, military life? Or I'll just throw out some softball questions and see if I can get some participation out there from everybody. I'll pause there. Anybody got any questions or anything? We're at the top of off the top before I dive into this. Okay. Before I kind of go into this, let me just give you a quick history about me. So I was born in Buffalo, New York. Went to Canisius College, like Dan had talked about. I was enlisted civil affairs specialist, so I did my AIT at Fort Bragg. Did that for about a couple years. Was going into community college. Thought, hey, got a lot of buddy of mine who are in a 4-year college, and after going to basic training in AIT, I was like, hey, I got to get on with my life, and I felt the calling to go to a 4-year college. So I went to a 4-year college. I was a sophomore. I didn't know what ROTC was. Both of my parents were immigrants straight off the boat from Germany. My dad was in the German army, the first one that they reconstituted after World War II. So I really didn't have anybody that I could talk to. A buddy of mine He went into the Army. One of my friends, whose son is on, his dad was a Vietnam veteran. And so I saw this guy going across Canisius College, and he was in Class A uniform. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" He's like, "I'm ROTC." I said, "Man, I have no idea what that is." So he told me a little bit about that. I got interested. I did a couple classes, and I really enjoyed it. The instructors, or the people that are teaching you, and the mentors that are guiding you, are just as influential as anybody else. So just make sure that you have good mentors and people on sounding boards that you can talk to, whether that's friends, families, you name it. Just make sure you have that, because that's a common theme throughout my career.
Colonel,
But
can I interrupt for 1 second, sir?
yeah, go
I
ahead.
apologize. I forgot. Real quick, in the room, if you could just acknowledge if you are currently serving, if you're active duty or active guard, just send something in the chat. We want to make sure we recognize your service. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, no worries. So I was at Canisius College, and I never thought that they would give me a full ride scholarship. It was a lot of money at that time, and that was the only way I thought it was gonna be a quick and easy out. That they would never give me the full ride scholarship, and lo and behold, that they did. And so I was like, man, 4-year commitment is a long time. So I took that scholarship in 1999. I graduated on a Friday. I started armor officer basic training on a Monday. I had literally a day and a half to get ready and to go and move on into the Army life. But like it says here in the slides, make the most of every opportunity. You just never know who's going to be looking at you, who's going to be seeing you, what potential people are going to be seeing you. And that could be the small things, whether that's, just you being kind to somebody, you being generous, you taking care of your business, like your schoolwork, going to class, doing physical fitness, doing the monotonous things. You never know who's going to look and who's going to extend the olive branch to you and be like, "Hey, I want you on my team, or I want to help you out." It goes both ways, and I've learned that throughout my career. So fast forward, I was an armor officer. I did that for a couple years. Went to Ranger School, went to Airborne School, did my platoon leader time in Korea. And then I became an adjutant general officer, which basically is human resources. So have you guys ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down? 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. So that's where I did my first time as an HR officer. So that was amazing. It was awesome. It was the height of the war in 2003 when I started there. And then that kind of set my trajectory off for the next 10 years to serve in special operations. So I did that. Was a company commander, was a troop commander, and then went to West Point, where I got to see cadets hand-on for face to face. And then from there, I went to work in the Pentagon to work on the Joint Staff, where you see the macro level. Everything, from Iraq, Afghanistan, to all the different, defense of the homeland, lots of different things. And then I did command out in Hawaii, where I was in charge of about 600 people. I was a battalion commander. Then I went off to school in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And then I led officer readiness for the entire Army. So I got to see, how an officer's life cycle is, how we can get them either, different opportunities, bringing people in, green to gold, OCS program, and other things. And then kind of like my last tour, I was the special operations senior human resources officer to a 3-star general that I had worked with before. So that's where I'm at. So a lot of these things that I'm going to tell you about are from that. None of these things are original thought. I took them from somebody else. I'm married. I have 2 kids that were born here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And like I said, I've been extremely blessed with meeting some great people, like Dan and like Doc, along the way too. And that's really what it's about. So the way I kind of look at priorities is this, is everybody's got a mission, regardless of what service you're in, what you're doing, but you got a mission to do, and that's number one. That's what you got to do, and that's what everybody together is working towards, right? You can bring individual talents, individual skills, but at the end of the day, the military is about teamwork, right? Whether you're Army working with the Marines, working with the Navy, at the end of the day, it's about fighting and winning the nation's wars, and to keep our freedoms and protect the American citizen, and to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. You do that by teamwork. And then within, your little area, whatever job that you do for that mission, at the end of the day, you're working towards being a subject matter expert. You're gonna, have, character, competence, and commitment. And when you're someone new coming into the military or just learning, your competence is going to be a little bit lower. But as you kind of move through the change in the jobs, your confidence, or your commitment and everything is going to go higher. So, and same with commitment too, right? The longer you stay in, the longer you're showing that your commitment. But you don't want to be subject matter experts in that. So, number two is leadership. If you don't think you're going to be a leader in the military, you're wrong. You're always going to be in charge of somebody or take care of something. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe it's leadership, whether that's to jump in when you see something's wrong, whether that's to take charge when the situation is not going well, or to give someone and help someone with leadership. At the end of the day, I firmly believe it's about leadership. And then, it's about developing others. You may have the key, or you may help something. You may be an expert, or you may know something, like you may be really good at math and somebody is not really good at math. It is about developing others so that they can stand confidently with themselves and do that. And in the military, that's extremely important to, kind of develop. I want my success, and while I'm here, is, hey, how can I help you all be better? How can all the boats rise together? So that's really good. You're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to do a lot of things. But I'm sure that Dan and Doc can attest, at the end of the day, man, just take care of people. It's truly important. You're going to be in some things, you're going to be in some situations where it's not always going to be great, but it's important that you just take care of people, because that means a lot. And it doesn't necessarily need to be if you're in the military or not. Being a good human being and being a good citizen is extremely important. But you build that camaraderie in the military, and kind of, I talked a little bit earlier about making the most of every opportunity. Again, you just never know who's going to be looking at you, what skills, what attributes. My buddy Scott, he's he's an awesome baseball player, and you just never know who's going to be looking at you and want to give you that scholarship, right? Or who's going to want to, as a scout, they're always looking for you. And you got to kind of have that mentality that, but you got to be doing those things just naturally, right? It's a mindset. If you want to be mediocre and kind of pass things by, then that's how you're going to be. But, my expectations is that, hey, you're striving for excellence. You might not be able to give 100% every day. I got that, but, you got to give your best. And then the last thing, as far as priorities, this is where I've seen people really, get in trouble in the military. It's about personal conduct, right? In the age of the media, a lot of social media and the platforms, right? It is about your personal conduct and how you carry yourself. There is an expectation, being in the military. You can look throughout the years. The profession that everybody respects the most is, people who are first responders, people who are in the military. And there is a high expectation with that, because, they count on you to, defend them, to protect the Constitution. But you can always see where personal conduct, you start, doing things, taking shortcuts, not doing things the right way, and that'll, get you in trouble. And that's why you kind of have to live by the golden rule. Who knows? Can anybody tell me what the golden rule is? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
Wow, really? No one? Come on, don't be shy. Don't forget to unmute your
Say
mics.
that again.
Yeah, what's the golden rule, Isaiah?
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
That's right. That's right. Everybody deserves dignity and respect, right? You can praise with dignity and respect, and you can correct and take someone to task and yell at them with dignity and respect. But I will say the golden rule, you're absolutely right. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. But I would just say with one caveat, right? Just don't assume that everybody wants to be treated like you. Like, as an example, like I'm okay with someone being direct. I'm okay with curse words. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else wants to be like that too. So that's the only caveat I give that. And then the second thing is, in the Army, we have Army values. The Marine Corps has their values. The Air Force, live by those values, esteem to instill those in others, and be a good model so those want to emulate and inspire others to do that. So that's what I kind of have for priorities. Anybody have any questions on any of those right there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned a little bit about kind of building that personal culture of excellence, within yourself. Now, my question is, especially as a junior leader in the Army, how can you help instill that culture of excellence when you get a new unit, a new group of soldiers come under your command? Could you give any insight into that, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. So, you're always going to be moving around. You're always going to be doing that. So yes, the transition period is extremely important because you want to make sure that you do that mission. So what I like to do is, engage leadership, right? So you got to kind of talk to individuals, right? You want to sit down and have a discussion with them. There are many different ways. I have a handout that I'll be glad to share, kind of helps me understand, hey, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Who's your family? Where are you from? How can I help you achieve your goals? What are your goals in your profession? What can I do? Or do you have any recommendations on things that I can do better? But, you never know what talents you have on your team that you could be like, wow, like, I have one person who was, who could code like no tomorrow. I had another person who was a financial wizard who was a millionaire, right? Nobody knew it. Looked like, he didn't understand that. You have some people who are, mechanically inclined, but without asking some of those questions and engaging, right? And then you can kind of go from there, right? And then, have a kind of a shared understanding of like, hey, this is where we want to go, right? You want to be able to, talk to individuals, engage with them. And then as a leader, right, everybody kind of knows you're the leader and you're the one that's going to make the decisions, right? There's really only one person who makes a decision. But you do want people to participate in the process, right? And then you also got to help inform them too, because a lot of people, they're like, hey, why are you digging this ditch? And people are just like doing this. Hey, I'm just digging the ditch just to dig the ditch. Nobody ever takes a moment to say, well, why? And you have to be able to, as a leader, to explain the reasons why, right? Why that's important, because then that makes them part of the process, right? You're digging this so that we can have a trench to build a concertina wire to protect us. Not just, it's just a menial task to just go ahead and, just dig a ditch. Nobody kind of understands that. And then I think, you're touching on a perfect segue into my next slide, but it's about the championship. Like what is the end state? What is the goal? Right? You got to give them that vision. So what is every NFL? Are you a football guy, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Buffalo Bills.
yeah, okay. What's the goal? What's the goal of every football team?
I mean, Super Bowl, right? Bringing home
Yeah,
the
that's right.
national
That's
title.
right. Yeah, that's right. So you in your team, you got to find what is that Super Bowl moment? Like what are you going and what are you collectively getting the team together to do? And how do you bring that down to your element so that they can understand that and then say, hey, I can action on that and do it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. No, that's very insightful. Thank you very much.
Right, absolutely. You're welcome. Great question. Anybody else? Okay. Doc, let's roll to the next slide. Okay, so like I said, 26 years in the Army. These are kind of my personal expectations of myself and of others. So I'm in North Carolina right now. You know, the greatest product out of North Carolina is Michael Jordan. If you didn't know that, great basketball player, greatest of all times. Um, but he says this: talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. You know, hey, it's great. You see teams come together. You want to use sports analogies. They have the greatest teams on paper. They get together, and guess what? It just doesn't work. You know, but it's the teamwork, it's the chemistry. And at the end of the day, I mean, look, man, I'm just shy of 50. I can only do so much. But what's between your ears is 90% the most important thing. It's what is in between your ears and how you navigate that, right? So, you know, you can only lift 300 pounds for so long. But at the end of the day, you know, how you're using your God-given brain and your intelligence is extremely important. So that's what I kind of pride myself and everybody that works for me is like, look, you know, like we're not always going to get it right, but I just want, you know, I'm going to give you problems and I want to see what you can do and how you can solve them. And with that, you know, communication is critical. You know, regardless of where you are, what you do, it is absolutely critical. Nobody wants to assume anything, but it's got to be up, down, across, laterally, and then you got to ask yourself, who else needs to know this? You know, if somebody is not doing well, how long are you going to sit on that before you got to notify, before you can tell somebody? You know, probably need to get that, you know, right away. So communication is extremely critical. Discipline, you know, I've got kids, right? So discipline is about doing the right things when no one's looking. You really want to know how people are truly, go out to the field with them or spend some time on the ship, or go somewhere. That's how you're really going to know how people are. You know, they can fake the funk. You can not be genuine for so long. But you know, it is about discipline. It is about, you know, not letting a deficiency go by, right? You let a piece of paper or a piece of garbage on the floor, you know, you just walk by. What did you just create? You just created a new standard, you know, because guess what? Now it's acceptable. You keep doing that numerous times, and you know the discipline begins to erode in your formations. So you got to be able to do things when no one is asking you to do that. We talked a little bit earlier about the 3 C's of being a professional, and that's character, competence, and commitment. Those things change, the competence and commitment over time as they grow. But I will tell you what, regardless, no matter what you do in life, this is life, never ever sacrifice your character. You only get one chance. And once that's gone, it is really hard to get back. You know, your integrity, your handshake, your word, your bond, it means a lot. And sometimes it's a lost art these days, but your character, don't ever lose that. Don't ever sacrifice that for anybody. I like, you know, facts are important to me, but context is king. You know, normally decisions are made or things happen. You know, you can tell me the numbers, the X's and the O's and everything like that. That's great. But tell me, you know, what led to someone doing that? There had to have been something, you know, someone makes, you know, some mistakes. Normally, hey, you know, they were in financial trouble. Maybe they, you know, some emotional issues. Maybe they broke up with somebody. You know, there's got to be some context, you know, behind it. That to me is the king. You know, come with the facts, but the context is extremely important. Why did you get a bad grade? Well, you know, I didn't score well on the exam. Okay, we'll start. Why? Well, I didn't put much on it. You know, okay. didn't study hard, didn't put effort into that, could have done better, and you start getting into what the context is. Um, a don't get overtasked. As much as we like to say, hey, this is all about pride and ego. At some point, it's like, hey, man, like you got a lot. You got to balance. You got to manage priorities between professional and personal life, or just there's a lot to be demanded of you. And asking for help is okay, because if you don't, then you drop a ball. Then there's not going to be any opportunity to kind of help fix it before it's too late. When I kind of go into new organizations, or I'm starting off, I always want to kind of, how can I leave this place better than I found it, right? It's truly important. But how do we do things more efficiently? There's always things that are going on. We could do things a little bit more efficiently. Normally, the people who are working that action are probably going to know. But you're going to see some people just want to leave their mark, right? Like, hey, I changed this thing because I'm Dan Clore, and I want to leave my legacy, and I want to change it. Well, guess what? Maybe the change that Dan wants to do is not really impactful. Like, it's not. So I like to, observe, assess, and then review. Like, what is it that you're really trying to change, and why? Because guess what? Maybe it ain't broke, don't fix it, or it's going to be so much that it's not worth the ass pain to change it. That makes sense, or that, hey, it is really worth it to change it. So always add that little review part to go and ask yourself if it's worth the squeeze to go ahead and do that. Think through issues, define the problem. What's the leader's first thing to do? Is define the problem. What exactly is the problem that we are having? Too many people want to take action, and they're taking action. They don't even know what they're taking action for, and then now you got a lot of people or doing things, or you waste a lot of time and energy on things, and you're like, hey man, like, we never had a problem. We don't even know what it is. But once you do find that, determine the solution, find people who know that and what the risks are. So, a lot of things have consequences, cost and risks. Hey, you don't want to do physical fitness? Probably not going to do well on the physical fitness test. You don't want to study? Probably not going to do well on the aptitude test. So you gotta work through those things. Like I told you before, resiliency. Hey, I got 2 kids. They tell me my mistakes all the time. We're all human. We're gonna make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, even today, and that's okay. But most importantly, guys and gals, like, learn from them, grow from them. And the hardest thing for you to do, right? I notice the individual who makes the mistake, you're probably going to be the one that's going to beat yourself up the most. Think about it. Whenever you make a mistake, you're probably going to beat yourself up the most. But you got to learn to move on, push that thing, grow, learn from those things. You learn from mistakes. You learn from the positive things and the mistakes, and move on. It's extremely important, and it builds resiliency, right? I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that just don't work out, but you got to be resilient to come back up and keep fighting. Professional, honest feedback is required and necessary for growth. I put honest feedback, right? Professional feedback. I kind of tell everybody, when you're kind of in a work, right? There's professional, and then there's personal, right? If you're working with people, we're going to talk about honest feedback that is professional. But you guys have kind of probably talked to other people, and you probably, hey, I'm going to give you honest feedback. What do sometimes people do, right? They take it, and they take it personal, right? Oh, you didn't like the way I did that, so that now you're attacking my person. Whoa, we can hang out, we can have social, have some cocktails and beers and whatever. But professionally, there's some things that, we need to fix or need to improve upon, and you got to make sure that people understand there's a professional part and a personal. No one's attacking anybody's personal. I have great people that I worked with, but, professional, honest feedback is important. Why would you send somebody in to a room there where everyone's got ammunition and you're walking in there with a knife. It's important to do that. Are you asking the right question? And how you're asking is extremely important too, right? If you keep asking the same question, you're probably going to get what? The same answer back, right? But also, how you ask is equally important, right? So if I said to you, hey, why did you do it that way? Probably going to be defensive, right? Not going to get to the answer of like, why did you choose? What was the option, or tell me or help me understand why you chose that route. Because you don't want to throw people right in the defensive. You're like, you got to find out what is the right question? What are we getting after here? And then the last two is real kind of easy, right? Hey, anywhere you go, whatever you do, whether that's making the environment better, whether that's adding a gym equipment that was never there, just leave it better than you found it. Somebody else is going to come in, take over from you. They build upon that, right? Just leave it better than you found it. And then just have fun, man. Like, I absolutely enjoyed it. I mean, some days were not as good as others, but I absolutely had fun at work. It was never felt like a job. I love the people that I worked with. Some days were hard, but I always learned a lot. There was always things to be done. But work is always going to be there, man. Work is going to be there, but life is finite. You never know, man. Like, people get taken from us way too early. But life is finite. Make sure you do those things. At the end of the day, you only have one life. You volunteer to go in the army, or you volunteer to go in the military, and you volunteer to come out. And not a lot of people have done that. So just make sure, regardless of what you do, just make sure, man, have fun. It's extremely important. Don't ever lose that. Any questions? Anybody have any questions on that?
Kind of have like one thing to add that kind
Yeah.
of goes along with it.
Yeah.
Act like someone's watching you. Someone might not be watching you, but act like somebody is watching you. You're always being watched at some point, somewhere. So I feel like that kind of goes into like character and everything like that too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's really great. And another way to kind of think about is I also heard of, hey, what are standards, right? So standards, you strive to keep that standard. Well, if you have a high standard, then that just becomes the norm, because that is just who you are, right? You get up every day and you make your bed, no matter what, even on Saturdays, even on Sundays. First thing you do, you get up and you make your bed. Because why? Because that's the standard. That's the new norm. How you carry yourself and what you do is the standard. Your work ethic, right? That's extremely important. I saw somebody else have another question. Thanks for that input.
I believe it was in the chat there, Mike. Carl, okay, what keeps you motivated, up and going?
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, it's about people, right? If you kind of think of a chain link, I never want to be the weakest link, right? I want to make sure that all my stuff is correct. I understand my job. I'm physically fit, I'm mentally fit. I'm taking care of my family. I'm trying to, inspire people, that want to join the military. It's not for everybody, but I'll tell you what, like I've been everywhere. I've seen lots of things, and in high school, I thought if you join the military, it's because you just have no other direction. Like it's the last straw. Not smart people go in there, but I was extremely surprised. Now I've met the smartest people who could probably make millions of dollars on the outside, but it's a selfless service that they chose to lead others. And when you can lead sons and daughters, there's no greater privilege than that. It's amazing. It just keeps you motivated. You want to keep working hard, keep working for that person to your right and left, and not let anybody down. And it's fun. Any other questions?
Yes, sir, if I may.
Yeah.
Now, your point about giving honest feedback and having it be, a professional critique as opposed to a personal one, that really stood out to me because, through my experience, right, I've seen how easily someone can take a critique as personal, right? I've even fallen into that. Now, do you have any quick tips you could share with us, like how you went about navigating that to where you gave the honest feedback to an individual while also coming across as that professional as opposed to personal or
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I think this brief that I have right here, I've given to every formation and to every formation when I first got there, I've given them. So they kind of understand right up front, like, hey, here are my standards. So I explained that to them. And then I sat down with every single person in my last job and I went over these again and we talked about, and they filled out that form and we went over that and we talked about it. But again, I think it kind of talks about, are you focused? You're focused on the behavior. That's what you're trying to correct, right? You're trying to focus on, hey, we're focused on this part of the job. This is my understanding. This is the standard, and here's where you work, right?
yes, sir.
You got great work ethic. You got, this and that, but this part is lacking. Not saying that you're everybody, and sometimes you just got to remind people, hey, listen, let's talk professionally. Nothing about your personal stuff, but let's talk about professionally, right? Here's what I'm observing, right? Because if you let that go as a leader, that person might go to the next, place, and they may think that they're really good at that, and you're like, no, and you let that slide, and that doesn't look good upon you. And that person's like, wow, I really trusted that leader to give me that feedback and they never did, and here I was, and you kind of set somebody up for failure, right? So I think, being engaged, having those early and often conversations, and then you kind of get to know the person, right? How is this person going to take this feedback if I give it to them, right? Is it gonna, are they gonna be over the top? Do they just naturally just overreact? Do they underreact? Do they not care? And that's really important. That's getting to know your people who you work with. And then how you can kind of, ask the right question, right? Because you're about to go, talk to them about professional feedback and you notice they're off, like, hey, is everything all right? And maybe that kind of you leave that open-ended question, right? Those open-ended questions, you want them to start talking about that. So you can give that, and then you say, here's the feedback from my perspective. And just ask them, hey, how do you think you did there? What do you think you did there? What's the standard? Tell me about what that is. And maybe they just don't know. And because you've done it thousands of times and they're just brand new, right? And they just don't have that critical eye yet.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Good question.
Colonel Joe has a question. Joe, type it out in the chat, buddy. We'll we'll relay it for you. Oh, and by the way, I have to bounce in like 3 minutes.
Doc, how do you want to do that? Could you even bring that over to make Mike the host?
Maybe. Yeah, as soon as I figure out how to do it.
Well, listen, let's if you want to just go to the last slide, Doc, real quick, and I'll wrap up this portion, and then we can just open it up. But
Okay.
hey, listen, focus on the priorities, mission, leadership, develop personal conduct. That's good. You're going to be in the military or in life. At the end of the day, just embrace change. Things are always happening, technology, everything, just embrace change, right? You ever see you want to be the salmon that's going up the stream? No, like, just embrace it. You'll come to grips with it better. The American people, you got to learn to thrive in adversity. when the chips are down and things aren't going well, that's when we need to be our best. Learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? Go take a cold plunge, go do something that makes you uncomfortable. But you got to learn to thrive in that. Be calm in the chaos. And at the end of the day, relationships matter. They truly do. Try not to blow the bridge. You want to go on the angry bridge, go with somebody, get mad, but don't blow the bridge. Relationships matter. It's a small military. You run into people all the time, or outside of the military, man. And it means a lot. Relationships have helped me tremendously throughout my years. So with that, I'll open it up to any other questions or whatever else you have.
Mike,
Yes.
I have a few things, and team, don't be shy. You have an opportunity here. There are no what's that saying? There are no dumb questions, just stupid answers. Is that
No, that's not correct. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Only stupid people asking questions.
Okay?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I will catch you guys next training session. I've got another training session to do. So thank you, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Dan, I shifted over to you for control.
Roger that. Thanks, brother.
Night,
Appreciate you.
everybody.
All right.